Welcome to Life Workshop, where we discuss the forgotten basics. The topic of this episode is, how do you listen? Before we get started again, Bo is with me, the most favorite co-host.
Hello.
And of course me, the most favorite host, Mo. To simplify this, I came up with this kind of that I categorize the conversations to 4 different ways. Then that applies that how do we listen in each category. One is when we are, I'm trying to help somebody, when I'm trying to get help from somebody.
Okay, so one is help someone?
Correct. For example, I'm a physical therapist. When I'm trying to help, I listen to them in a different way. When I want to get help, that's the number 2. That, for example, I ask, hey, Bo, how can I do this plumbing, or what shall I do?
Mm-hmm.
Then there is a number 3, that just a normal conversation that we have, during the day, maybe about different things that is not about a specific thing that, for example, was plumbing or physio, about some other stuff that we might have some ideas and opinion about, for example, climate change, vaccination, I don't know, the politics and those kind of things. And then there is a 4th one. The 4th one is when we listen to, let's say, music or entertainment or movies and those kind of things. That really just listening to those things. And that is why, because we are purely listening, we don't challenge the song or challenge the movie. Hey, you should have said that or you should have done that. Maybe because of that, they become very entertaining or can be entertaining when we listen to a movie or, as I said, to a music, because we are not there to judge them. So because of that, this category, I think, becomes a kind of more of entertaining and fun, or can be. But the first 3 that I mentioned, it depends. So I'm going to go back now, just basically just come up with some, explain a little bit more. The number 1, when, for example, we ask a question and we are listening with the intention to help somebody.
Okay.
So when I'm the position of a consultant, or a technician, either and or would work. Very briefly again, technician is when you come and say, Mo, I want you to do this. And then I do it. I don't necessarily ask a question why you want me to do it, how you want it to be done. It can be done better in a different way. That is the technician. But if I start asking those questions, that, for example, so why are you doing this? Can you do it in a better way? I have these suggestions, something like this, and then it becomes more of a consultant. But regardless, when you're asking me,
To stop you for a second. This just came into my head now. When do you decipher when those times are? Because sometimes, say, like if I'm giving someone an instruction to do something, just do it. You don't need to ask me 100 questions about a million things. It's like just shut up and do what I asked you to do. I don't. Like, say,
I make sure I don't ask you.
Yeah,
what do you want me to do? Okay, done.
Hey, but there are times.
I understand.
Right? Say you're giving an apprentice, and hey, just do this, and then they ask you a bunch of questions. And I get it. Sometimes it's good to ask questions for clarity, but some of these questions are things that has nothing to do with anything, and it's like, oh my God, just turn the knob. Turn the knob. I don't want anything else. You don't consult me about how you're going to turn the knob. Just do it.
Okay.
So
need some cold water here, Bo.
Maybe, but just as you were talking about that, I'm like, so how do you, when you talk, because you've talked about this a lot, consultant versus technician, how do you
differentiate that
when you're going to be, which role you're going to play?
Very fair question, because sometimes becomes unsolicited, advice or unsolicited question that you will suggesting it. It really depends on the case scenario. I haven't thought about it at what point. It's just more of a, I don't know if I should say it, common sense, but and based on the relationship between the 2 parties and how the other party takes it. But personally, I understand. Sometimes becomes a nuisance. Just do it. Don't worry about the rest of the stuff. But now I'm going to focus because that is really on its own. How do you divide the situation? That I don't have a proper answer for it. I haven't thought about it. But
Okay. Sorry, it just popped in my head.
yeah, no,
right
no,
then,
no.
so-
That makes sense. That makes sense. That at one point, I should do that because personally, I give unsolicited advice more frequently than not, and some people they like it, and obviously, some don't. But then, as soon as I feel that is not getting anywhere, I drop it. Normally, I try to listen to that body language to some
okay.
extent.
So body language too, hey?
Yeah, oh, for
Write
sure.
that down.
So then when it comes to, as I said, listen, when the relationship is that, when you're asking help from me, then, and so I will listen in a different way. And normally there isn't much argument there. It's just, you want this, I'll do it for you, period. When I'm asking for help, if I come to you and say, hey, Bo, I have this question in regards to plumbing, I don't come with, normally, hopefully not with any bias or an opinion that I have in my head that I want to do this plumbing this way and I want you to agree with me. I don't come with that. I normally come and ask, hey, how can I do this? So when I listen to that, I listen genuinely with no background, with no specific agenda. I'm not looking for any specific answer. I'm asking for an educated answer, and that's all I'm seeking for. So normally in this first two, nothing specific happens. Although that said, I should say this, I had once a consultant, he's a business consultant. He was very intelligent. I use the word kind of, I think, accurately, intelligent versus smart. He knew a lot, but he was not actually performing it in his own life. And because of that, although he knew a lot, sometimes I'm going and asking him for help. As soon as I would say something, that he would just get mad. He did. Because of that.
I do that all the time.
Oh my God. I don't want to say his name, but then maybe it was Bo.
No, it wasn't me this time. I don't give anyone life advice.
But basically what I'm trying to say, because he was not even listening as a consultant, he was my consultant. He was my business consultant that was doing something, but he was not able to listen properly. And because of that, he had a very hard time himself, although he was very intelligent, very well educated in the field, but he had a very hard time to establish himself, and he actually got fired a few times. I don't want to get into details. Yeah, and he was actually very intelligent. I learned a lot from him, and I applied it. He could not apply those things to his own life. So I should say that, but I'm not going to go further with that one. But because of the personality that he had, he never asked a question. Or for example, if I would go and say that, hey, I have this question, I think he had an agenda with it to begin with, that I have to ask a certain question that I didn't ask. So he would get mad at me for that. If I was asking another for clarification, sometime I'm guessing to him it came as if I'm challenging him versus I'm genuinely asking a question. So because of that, they're listening for him. So sometimes that can go wrong too in these two categories that I said, even when you want to act like a consultant. But again, depending on how you listen, if you listen really genuinely, if you're asking a question, I can take it as you're asking a genuine question. Of course, if your question would be, oh, so you think about plumbing, I should do this, huh? Then obviously I'm throwing an attitude so I can piss you off too. But of course, you should not get pissed off. But again, that's another story.
I guess. I think it, as the questioner too, I think sometimes I've known when I've asked a question and I think, oh, this could be taken in a specific way, I might say something like, I'm not trying to be a jerk, or you say something like that. Say, but this, or say, I'm not challenging you. I'm just asking. And that can sometimes go a long way.
Again, it's a both parties' responsibility. I know what
Yeah.
you're saying. That even if, for example, I'm asking to challenge you, you can again take the position that answer it as if I never did that. You can change the tone.
Yeah.
Or you can rephrase that, oh, is this the question? Say it with the right tone.
Yeah.
I'm saying this, I should tell you this. I know it in theory myself, I suck at doing it. So I have to work on this. As I was actually working on this podcast, I saw that, oops, I have some work to do personally. That even if, for example, I said, yeah, if, for example, I'm the consultant, you're coming and ask a question, and your question seems a kind of, challenging me, or, with an attitude, I can maybe rephrase it, put it in a proper way, and then answer that question, not the question that you asked.
Right.
This is very important, because if I answer to the question that came with the attitude, it will be a different way of saying it. But if I change it, I mature the question in a unbiased and proper question, and then I have taught you at the same time how to ask a question. I have to practice that myself. So, am I making sense there?
Yeah, I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah, so basically we try to mature the question. Actually, in the previous podcast, I said that there is no answer to a stupid question. So we have to, because when somebody asks a question that is with an attitude, is rather a stupid question. It just deviates to that side. If they want to challenge your authority, then instead of that, because that becomes questioning versus asking a question. So you want to change the tone of that to make it a question, a genuine, unbiased question, then answer it in that way. And maybe actually it will help my own thing. If, for example, as I said, you're challenging me.
If someone asks you a question, then with, as you say, attitude, or with what you deem as a stupid question, as the listener, you have to listen for it. Say, what are we really trying to get to here? Rephrase the question so that you can give the proper answer.
That's correct. Exactly. Yeah. So I will rephrase that question with bias, rephrase it in an unbiased question, and then I respond to this new one. I should practice that.
And then say, does that answer? And then say, is that what we're looking for?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, actually, I should really practice this one. I have to listen to my own podcast afterwards. Seriously, this part, it makes a lot of sense. Now I'm going to go from, I said, number one was that when we ask a question with intention to help somebody, when we ask a question, the second one was when we ask a question to ask for help. I'm going to go to number 4 that we talked about. When we are listening, for example, to a podcast, we are listening to music or something. Hopefully, when we listen to this thing, podcast is different. If you're listening to a podcast, you're listening to a TED Talk, normally you're listening with a question in mind that, but sometimes it's a biased thing. You didn't say what I want you to hear, then no, it's a bad podcast, it's a bad TED Talk, versus, why did he say that? Of course, I know you can't answer me that question. I cannot answer it live. But anyway, so that challenge is there. But when we are listening to music, or as I said, listening to news or something, we don't question it. We just ask, we just simply listening. It's a genuine question. But the most common problems happens in the third level. When we have a conversation. In a conversation, it becomes an argument. Or, for example, it becomes a debate or something. Like politicians, when they have a debate, they are literally going for a war. That's all it is. They are just fighting. They are not there. At least that has been the feeling I have got. They are not there to clarify things. They speak just louder. They speak faster. They speak on top of each other, which is completely, I would say, oh my God, uncivilized.
Yeah.
And then they do that, and these are the people that are going to be leading our countries and cities and those kind of things. It's just sad, to be honest, when they do that. So it's not the intention; it's a completely different thing. But now, I normally say that if you listen with the sense of curiosity, I have said this before. I believe I have brought this up a long time ago. I had a TV show that it was called Curious Mind. And then normally my tagline was this: welcome to Curious Mind, where comments are not welcome, questions are. And I had said that if people would practice this, 95% of all problems in the whole world would get resolved. Somebody said, said, isn't that a bit of an exaggeration? I said, no, not really. Actually, I have been very, obviously, humble in that percentage, because we create the problems. They don't exist. The natural disasters are very few and far in between. The most of the problems in the whole world that we have is because we create them for ourselves or for somebody else. And almost all of them would get resolved. I mean, not resolved. They would not even happen if we would be more curious and ask a question. For example, somebody cuts you off, you get mad at them. Mm-hmm. You come up with the idea that why they cut you off, but you don't know that.
Right.
And this goes on and on. Or sometimes we do that to each other because I'm assuming you said something with this intention.
Yeah.
Those assumptions, they come. Or I use my own personal experience and views versus, listening to you, why you did that. Anyway, so this goes on and on. So, but the sense of curiosity that if we really listen with the intention to understand, not with the intention to respond.
Sure.
That would change a lot of things.
At the same time, you can't be asking questions all the time. You need some answers in there.
Correct. As a matter of fact, I should say this though. To a very good part, and I'm trying to become good at it. A lot of time, for example, if you make a comment on something, let's say the climate change. If somebody, the hot topic, for example, if a lot of time, if by you ask the right question, the person will get the answer. I don't want to go into, I have to practice on that. That, for example, when somebody has an opinion, then you can ask a question, how did you develop that opinion? Have you done studies on it? Have you read the studies? What kind of a background do you have? But of course, sometimes that becomes an insult to the other party, or at least they take it as such. There is so much of a responsibility that I can take as a questionnaire versus somebody who is responding to that. So, but again, those challenges will remain. But if all of us would practice the sense of curiosity, it would change a lot of things. Actually, as I said, a lot of problems would never happen. Just wouldn't happen, period. And has it helped myself? I'm practicing that to a good extent. I have to practice more of it. And to be honest, it has made life better. It really has. And sometimes actually when I was preparing for this, I realized I have to make some more changes. And as you know, in the my mission statement for the podcast is improving lives. First mine, second yours, then others. And really it is in that order, because every time I'm preparing for a podcast, I see, they just hit me. For myself, I do things a bit better. And really, it has made my own life better. That is one reason I'm doing it, because otherwise, this a lot of time and actually money and things is spent on this thing. But I'm absolutely fine with it. Absolutely fine with it. I'm gaining, that's for sure. So anyway, we should listen with the intention actually really to understand versus with the intention to respond or to judge the other party. And then, as a matter of fact, I was listening to a TED Talk. This guy said that negotiators, they practice this listening, because when they do that, they understand what is the problem with the other party. First of all, you understand their part by listening to them. The second thing, you connect with them because you are really listening to them. And the third thing, because you have listened to them, they give you a chance to talk and they listen to you.
Yeah.
If you keep cutting them off, you don't listen to them, well, they will do the same thing to you. Then
you make it so that what they're saying is important, because everyone wants to have what they say be important, and it makes it sound like you actually care.
It is not just a matter, yes, but it's not just a matter of importance. You want to see what do they have to say. Actually, now I'm going to bring these sentences, because the thing that you just said, it was just at the right time. It said, these are not my sentences, so I cannot take the credit for it. But active listening is to listen not only to what is said, but also to what hasn't been said. So that is the active listening.
Yeah, that's where you get assumptions. That's bullshit.
No, what? Okay, thanks for asking a question, not judging. I think, boy, you need to listen to this podcast too, buddy.
Or
No.
maybe I'll not listen.
No, but you, by listening to what hasn't been said, again, basically, when you ask more questions, then they say it. That is, I think, the idea.
Okay.
Not to make judgments. Actually, this is the second part of it. Listening not only to the words, but also behind the words. When it says behind the words, my take is the body language. And again, a lot of times you can clarify that. You can simply not assume, because personally I'm against that, but if they can't say it, but you're getting an impression, you can say that, is this what you're trying to say?
That's fair.
Okay, good.
Thank you for clarifying.
If you hadn't rushed, I would have done that the first time.
Well,
But anyway.
how would I know?
But actually, this is another very, I would say, important sentence that I want to get your attention. In order to be able to listen to others, first we should be able to listen to ourselves, to our thoughts and our feelings. And this part, it means this. I'm glad you didn't say anything.
I'm just waiting.
This
to hear.
means that very frequently we are not very clear with our own thoughts and our own feelings. Very frequently. And one thing that I strongly recommend, which I told you when I was a child, my dad said this and I practiced it, that when you go to bed, think what makes you feel better that day, what makes you feel worse. And then if the thing that made you feel worse, why did it do? Was it you or the other party or environment? And then see what you can change. So if we start thinking what makes me feel better, what didn't, we are really listening to our own feelings and thoughts. Then it improves our ability to listen. And really it comes, that you listen to yourself first, to your own feelings, then you can kind of listen to other people. Otherwise, you haven't learned it. Am I kind of making sense there?
Yeah.
So basically, try to be very clear with your own feelings, with your own thoughts. That where did it come from? Why am I feeling the way that I do? Another thing that I would like to say is that I say at times it is hard to listen to somebody who doesn't speak. That becomes a challenge. What I'm trying to say, sometimes, for example, I ask, so how are you doing? How things are going on? You ask, and for example, the other party doesn't say anything. In relationships, very frequently you see that. They just give you
nothing at all, or just
sometimes they give you. But in relationship, for example, when you talk to your kids or something, it's good. Or at work with your employees or with your colleagues, that if something is going on wrong, something is wrong, they just don't speak. So party is responsible of them to speak up.
Right.
But party is really our responsibility to, anyways, and I think the only way for it that we can get them to speak is by asking questions. That hopefully it will get people to speak, a bit, speak up their mind. I forgot one thing that I wanted to say, I believe in the previous podcast that I forgot, but it's very important. In our culture, we teach people to express themselves and their opinion more than teaching them to ask questions. I missed that one. I wanted to bring that up at one point. At a school, for example, we teach students, or at home, that tell me, which is, it has its own place. But I would say really we should teach them to ask questions too. And normally we have a prize for a proper answer, but not for a proper question.
Yeah.
We don't encourage our kids to say, did you ask a smart question today? But we sometimes ask, so what was your answer?
Well, I think they try and do that. That's where you get that whole thing, like there's no dumb questions.
Well,
Because
the fact is
that's trying to encourage people to ask questions.
Fair enough, but I'm not too sure if you are doing enough of it. As I said, I don't know. I'm not getting that feeling, because when I have seen the new generation, I haven't seen as much of a question. Maybe I have higher expectation. Personally, I ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, no,
And
I'm just saying that's I think that's where that whole thought process comes from. There's no dumb questions, so keep asking questions. But I don't think it's, I guess like you're saying, it's not taught. It's not taught specifically that way. All you get is that phrasing. Well, there's no dumb questions, you know.
That is the thing. We need action.
Teaching someone how to do it properly, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that is very true. The saying is there, but the action is not. And are we really promoting it for real?
No.
And that is the problem, that you want to ask, you know, we encourage people to ask more questions, and the smart question to be rewarded versus, you know, more than smart answers, I would say. Really, I think that would become a lot more helpful. Then actually there was this guy that he said we have talk shows, but we don't have listening shows. We have peace talks, but we don't have peace listening.
Well, we be just sitting there in silence. Someone's got to be talking for someone to listen.
Correct, but correct. But it just promotes the active listening, basically. That present, that's just why. Again, to that question of why, what happened, you know, those kind of things that really get the other parties to talk and speak. Again, to revamp the whole thing, as I said, the active listening really is very important. And how do you do that? If you're listening with the intention to really see what the other party has. I think the key thing is curiosity. If you're really curious that why the other party says or does something, that will do it. It will fix everything. It will fix your tone. It will fix it will make your questions unbiased. It will just do it. Because the intention is different now. Intention is really to know versus I'm listening to prove you wrong, to catch you somewhere that you say something wrong. If that curiosity stays there, you know, it will solve. Maybe I should correct. It doesn't solve the problem. It prevents lots of problems. It's not a solution. It's a prevention. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, it's always good to have curiosity when you're asking a question, because that's the whole point of asking, right? I don't know about solving any problems, but
sometimes actually you are asking a question with the intention, I have an agenda. I want to get you somewhere, you know, get to something. Often, you know, more frequently is that versus just asking a genuine question. And I'm talking about the daily subjects. Normally it is where the questions can go wrong. Not the first two categories of when you are asking for help or you're offering help.
Those are you mean like leading questions?
That becomes that. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's not good. There's no point in even asking a question then.
But hopefully, again,
unless it's like, hey, I want to hear your. Well, no, sorry, I'll shut up.
Okay, I'm listening.
No, I'm good.
I have to practice this myself. To be honest, you know, as I was working on this podcast, I realized I have some work to do. So hopefully, I will work a bit more on it, and we will see. But anyway, again, please remember, life is simple. We make it complicated. If we prevent a lot of stuff, we don't have to solve them. You know, if you don't make a mess, you don't have to clean it up. Again, I would like to finish this one with this question again. How do you listen? Do you really listen with the sense of curiosity, or do you listen with the sense of, I want to respond something? Anyway, hopefully, again, you find this helpful, and we will talk to you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.